Hey y'all, this is Davvy Divine. Here with you to share a little bit more information regarding the 2%, the 2% of the or the amount of risk involved when it comes to contracting an STD or having an unplanned pregnancy. Okay, because these condom boxes, right, would tell you or would state on the box in extremely fine print that there's a 2% chance of having an unwanted pregnancy or the condom malfunctioning. Okay. Based on their manufacturing techniques, their marketing techniques. There's a video I recently made. It's about 18 minutes long. Go check it out on my channel or this channel where I talk about how I mentioned this 2% and how it's very deceptive. You have to be aware, be cautious, okay? Be wise and smart in this scenario. That's why I'm talking about it. So this video is pretty much a little bit of an extension of what I discussed in a previous video. I think the previous video was called Protecting Your Assets. And it was based on the fact that the enemy, okay, our spiritual enemy, the perverse one, the father of the lie, the master minimizer, opposes or tries to make things that matter to God puny, tiny, small, insignificant. So let's get into this a little bit. I do have a little tiny bit of notes, but stay tuned to the end because I have an awesome story that's going to wrap it up for you. Okay. Well, a pretty good story. Maybe not awesome from your perspective, but here we go. So let's look at this 2% a little bit deeper. Let's consider this 2%. Now, we're not really talking about marriage here. We're talking about being intimate, physically, sexually active outside of marriage and the risk. So you can factor in marriage in some of the percentages and statistics I'm about to state. So within the United States of America, it is reported that there are about 450 million condoms that are sold annually inside the United States. And globally, that number is about 35 billion condoms sold globally annually, all over the world, every year. So 450 million condoms sold every year in the United States and 35 billion sold every year around the world. Now let's look at the 2%, right? So out of 450 million condoms sold, if 2% malfunction or break, or is that the chance of contracting an STD or having an unplanned pregnancy, that would be 9 million people out of 450 million people. That was that out of 450 million condoms that was sold, 9 million malfunctions or could result in STD, contraction, or unplanned pregnancy. 9 million people. That's a lot of people. Okay? That is a lot of people. That's like half of a whole state, if not the size of a state, the size of some countries. Some countries are not even a million people in some countries, not even 500,000 people in some countries. Some countries have 100,000 people, 300,000, but 9 million people are at risk in that 2% of 450 million condoms sold. Okay. Now, I also talked about in a previous video that reputable, okay, credible medical websites, if you research them, talk about how between 13 and 18 or 20% is the actual number of malfunctions of these condoms and not the 2% fine print that these manufacturers of condoms put on the boxes state is actually way above that. Okay, double, triple, quadruple that. So that would make, let's average that out between 13 and 20%. Let's average it out. Let's say, or 13 and 18%. Let's say 15% is the actual number of malfunctions and risk of unplanned pregnancy and contracting an STD. Do you know how many people that is out of 450 million condoms sold annually? 15%, okay, would be 67, almost 68 million malfunctioning condoms in the United States if the 450 million condoms are used. 67 million malfunctions. Do you want to be one of those malfunctions? And the 2% they claim 9 million malfunctions, you don't even want to be in that number. But then 67 million if it's the actual number that trusted medical research show. Now, if it was globally, that 2% malfunctioning, according to the condom makers, that would be 700 million malfunctions. 700 condoms would put you at risk. 700 million condoms would put you at risk globally. That's how many people are at risk globally for unwanted pregnancies, STDs. If that was the average 15%, that's the actual number for condom breakage, slippage, misuse, would be 5 billion people. That's the real average, 15%, not the 2% that these condom manufacturers want to claim. And they still have a disclaimer. If you look on these boxes of these protective devices, they still claim that, oh, 2% is like an estimated number. Don't, take your own precautions. And that's only if you use the condoms perfectly, if you use them correctly. Now, when these condom boxes say use them correctly, what they're actually stating is that if you do anything that's going to cause the condom to not act right, they're not responsible. So that 2% means if you use it exactly how they're supposed to be used every single time you engage in sexual activity, there's a 2% chance. Okay, but these credible, reputable, trusted medical researchers, not the condom makers, if you visit these websites, they will let you know that it's actually higher because people actually are imperfect and they're going to use it the way imperfect people use it. Okay? Imagine the amount of people, number one, not using it. We're not talking about those in marriage, and even married people use it. Okay? But think about it. Think about it. When they make these condoms, they test them in labs. They use machinery. It's in a clinical setting. It's in a controlled environment. They have other imperfect humans blowing them up, testing them, stretching them out to see, filling them up with like fluid or water or like some kind of liquid to see how strong they are, and then they measure the percentage. These are controlled environments. These are not environments where, you are just coming from a party if this is your lifestyle. If you're coming from a party that was where you would have found alcohol there, other chemicals and illegal substances being used there. Okay. This is not talking about being in the height of intimate passion and trying to get on a protective device or insert a protective device if you're using a female condom. This is not talking about being in the heat of the moments, in the dark, okay, fumbling around. This is not talking about if somebody suffers from like performance anxiety, right, and may put on the device or the condom wrong, backwards, inside out, not properly halfway. Someone's overly excited may accidentally rip or tear the condom unknowingly. Whether it's a man or a woman putting it on, it can rip. People have long fingernails, artificial nails, whatever the case may be. It can rip. Some people keep their condoms in their car where it's hot in the summertime or certain times of year, and that degrades the condom, makes it weaker, okay, and more vulnerable to breaking. Some people have condoms that are expired. Some people have condoms they hold for years and years. You know, there are people who suffer from erectile dysfunction. Let's call it intermittent erectile dysfunction, where they may be aroused or erected, but then it goes back down, or limp, and then they become aroused again, and then it goes back down. How can you trust activity, intimate activity with such a person, when it can slip off at any time because of this dysfunction in their body? That part of their body's not working too properly, and it goes down and up, and it's causing the condom to basically become loose and come off. There's so many scenarios that can occur that cause it not to work out in your favor. And this is not talking about the 2%. This is talking about the 18% malfunctions, okay? These are the reasons why. And we're talking about people who actually choose to use them. Imagine the amount of people who are not choosing to use them, like I said, because of heat of passion, the height of passion, or the heat of the moment, or being doped up, or confused, intoxicated with alcohol, other substances, chemically. There are people using fentanyl, Percocets, all these illegal substances, the way they're using it, illegal prescriptions, all this stuff. But then they're going to say, oh, but I was safe. No, you don't know if you were safe. How do you remember if you were safe? You probably didn't even remember the nights or the day or the dates or your name at the time, but you were going to say you were protecting yourself and others. I want to share a story regarding this, okay? There was this time I was about to have a medical procedure, and the doctor told me that you're going to have to take a medicine before you have the procedure, in preparation for the procedure. And I was like, okay, fine. But he said, before I give you this medicine, you need to know there's a 2% chance that you're going to have an adverse reaction or side effect to this medicine. I was like, oh, thank you for telling me. Don't worry about it. 2% chance probably won't be me. I'll be all right. I'll take that risk. So I took the medicine. He told me and my friend who tagged along with me to the appointment, he's like, y'all got to wait at least 30 minutes to an hour so we can observe you after you take the medicine before the procedure, which was on the next day or that following few days. And he was like, we got to just observe you to see if there's a reaction or not. So we waited about 45 minutes, and then we were like, oh, we can go now because it's been past 30 minutes, almost an hour. And they were, the clinicians were like, yeah, you can leave now. You should be okay. So my friend and I left. We went to a restaurant afterwards because it was in the middle of the afternoon. And we were like, let's go have some lunch. We didn't have lunch yet. While we were in the restaurant waiting to be served, okay, I just felt my hand started to itch a little bit. I was like, my hand feels a little itchy. And it started to increase. And I was like, it's really itching. It's starting to itch my wrist, going up to my elbow. My arm was itching. And then all of a sudden, my feet started to itch, and it started to go up my ankle and up my leg. I was like, my body's just getting more intense itching, like this fiery itching. And then my feet started to swell up, my hands were swelling up, and my feet got so swollen in my ankles and the lower part of my legs that I almost could not walk. I literally had to take my shoes off and walk outside the restaurant on the sides of my feet because the center and the tops of my feet was so swollen of this fluid. And we were like, oh, we had to cancel our order. We went to the car. My friend and I, we were like, let's go to the hospital. What if this thing gets worse and goes all over my body? and to my throat, because I was like starting to feel like, okay, what if I can't breathe? I don't know if I was having anxiety or my throat was like starting to feel like it was closing up. But it could be a mental thing when I was actually still breathing, but worried that this reaction could affect my whole body instead of my peripheral parts of my body, such as my limbs, like arms and legs. So while we were driving to the hospital, we called the doctor's office back and we were like, oh, I'm having a reaction. It's like an hour and a half, 2 hours later after I took the medicine. And I was like, we're headed to the hospital. We're headed to the emergency room. Do you know what else we should do or say when we get there? And he said, no, don't go to the hospital. Don't go to the emergency room. Just go home and take this amount of Benadryl, right? The anti-allergy medicine. So we did that. We were like, okay, well, I feel like I'm breathing, but my arms and legs are itchy and swollen, and they feel like they didn't get worse, but they stayed the same. So when I got home, she helped me into the house. I laid down, I took the medicine. She stayed with me for a while till the medicine started working. The medicine actually kicked in and the itchiness started to go away. The swelling went down. I was like, whoa. And I was so confident before taking the medicine that 2% would not affect me. It would not be me. And why would it be me? I'm rarely the type of person who have reactions. Like, it's just not something I've ever experienced before, an allergic reaction. And I was like, almost, I was mid-20s, I would say. So, I just was surprised. Like, I've never really had an allergic reaction to anything, itching or not even seasonal or anything like that. So I felt so confident. I just told you this story to let you know that 2%, when you're in that 2%, let me tell you, it feels like you're in the 100% risk factor when you're experiencing that 2%, and your life is completely changed, transformed, and altered negatively because you were in the 2%. Adverse reaction, malfunctioning, STD, STI having, pregnancy, existing situation, scary, regretful, tormenting, like a nightmare, right? A nightmare come to life, but you're living it. So I'm just saying, take it very seriously. Yes, they're telling you it's 2%, but that 2% is still a big deal. And they're telling you it's 2% in a controlled environment, in a clinical environment, in human tested environment, these lab tested environments, not in the other situations that I mentioned before. Okay. That's basically what I wanted to share in this video. So glad you stick to the end. Subscribe. The smile is for you. Like the video, please. And if you'd like to share it, even if it's just by word of mouth, tell somebody else who you want to save, protect, who you care about this message. Stay tuned for more videos. Visit me on TikTok, sometimes Instagram, right? It's not as busy over there, but still would like to have you because other things may go on that you may want to find out about in the future or later this year. Thanks for being here. Stay awesome. Till the next video. Bye.